Hey, welcome to this week's lecture. We're going to explore the idea of your comfort zone. This is an important idea because it encapsulates our human tendency to want to stay where it's comfortable, where we feel like we know what's going on. The problem is that we already know what's going on. Your comfort zone is where you're only going to find ideas that you have already had. So, I want you to start by watching this video from a researcher who looked at the impact of people leaving their comfort zone. Find out why Marcus Taylor has been, as he puts it, proactive at getting outside his own comfort zone. Either of the links should work for you. If they don't, just copy the URL into a new browser. If you have trouble with this or with any technical aspect of this class, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. My email is kziff@mtroyal.ca, and I would definitely rather help you than have you floundering without help. Okay. This is a good time to pause me talking. Go watch that video. Now that I've trust that you've done that, one thing I want to point out, actually, let me do this differently. Normally when I teach this class, I show this videos and I ask students what stood out to you from Taylor's work. And one of the things that comes up most often is what he had to say about what people who leave their comfort zone on a regular basis have in common. So I hope you found that as interesting and relevant as I did. This is a good time for you to take a couple of minutes. Again, you can pause me so I'm not distracting you while you do it. And just brainstorm some ways that you've left your comfort zone over the last 6 months. I want to acknowledge that always, but the last 6 months in particular, we may have been pushed outside our comfort zones in ways that were not our choice, in ways that were really stressful. So I don't want to romanticize being outside your comfort zone. It's not always easy. But if you're open to it, it does always help you grow. So with that said, think back to ways you've left your comfort zone in the last 6 months or so. Press pause if you need a little more time. But if you've got at least 10 examples listed, take a look at them and think about, what do they have in common? Is there a time of day when you're more likely to be adventurous, or maybe a day of the week when you have a greater chance of trying something new? Is there a person, maybe a friend, who takes you on adventures, or someone you don't know but who inspires you to try things that you wouldn't have tried otherwise? And also take a minute to just look at how you feel about yourself in relation to these things. Do they leave you proud? Are there any that you regret? They're not all necessarily going to be one thing. This isn't a simplistic experience. But if you're open to reflecting, you can learn a lot from these things. And that's why your Stretch Quest assignment includes a part where you are asked to reflect on your experience. And that means doing more than saying, this is what I did. It means being able to say, this is what I learned about myself. This is what it meant to me. It's a really important skill to be able to get the most out of all of your life experiences. Comfort zones can also be a factor for companies. If you look back over the history of Apple, while Steve Jobs was leading it, they left their comfort zone over and over again. They didn't all work out. The Newton, for example, may not be in any technical halls of fame, but they didn't just stick with one way of doing work. They tried new things. They invented new product categories. And as a result, had a huge impact on the culture and on their bottom line. Looking at this and thinking about Steve Jobs as their leader, you might think that he never spent any time in his comfort zone. You might think he was constantly pushing himself to stay outside it. I'm going to say I have evidence to think that that is wrong. I think that he spent time in his comfort zone at least once every single day, and that you can see it. And that happened when he stood in front of his closet and decided what to wear every day. This is a really important point. What I'm talking about is not pushing yourself to be outside your comfort zone at every single minute. It's not that at all. It is about being thoughtful and balanced and not letting yourself get lazy about your comfort zone. It's about having some things where you really push yourself, like Steve Jobs pushed himself as a business leader, as an advocate for the role of design in consumer electronics, which is something that had been horribly ignored without him. He pushed himself in other areas, but he also had places where he didn't push himself. For him, I'm going to argue that was his outfit. For someone else, there are other people who's make really good living pushing themselves in terms of fashion. But maybe they have a comfort zone that is about friends and family, or about music, or about self-care routines. It's not that your comfort zone needs to be any particular place, and it's not about avoiding it. It's about visiting it as you need it, using it to make yourself stronger. The other thing that I want to make really clear is that your comfort zone isn't just like a binary situation where you're in it or you're outside of it. It's more layered than that. I think of it as having 3 layers. You might think of it as having more. But there's the comfort zone right in the middle where you know what's going on. You're not worried about too much. It's relatively everyday stuff. Outside of that is what I call your courage zone. This is where you might be trying new things. Your heart might beat a little faster, but it's more about nervousness and excitement than it is about what you'll find outside your courage zone, which is panic. Now, your panic zone can be a tough place to be. Sometimes life takes you to your panic zone when it's not your choice. And when that happens, you really need to balance it out with time spent in your courage zone, and especially in your comfort zone. But just because it's really hard to be there doesn't mean it's a place to avoid. I think that visiting your panic zone every once in a while is a really good way to keep it from having too much power over you. It's a really good idea just to push yourself every once in a while to try that thing, whether it is rock climbing or for some people going dancing, or calling up that person that you want to ask to be your mentor. What puts you in your panic zone is going to be different for different people, but it's worth testing it out every once in a while. Your courage zone is a great place to spend time. It's where you can grow without becoming overwhelmed, without burning yourself out. And your comfort zone is a great place to visit sometimes. I had, in August, I'm doing a doctorate, and August was a super intensive month of learning doctoral level statistics and math and quantitative methodology. That was way outside my comfort zone. Way outside. For any of you who would find that easy, my hat is off to you. One night, when I was just ready to give up, I recognized what was going on, and I said, okay, I'm taking a break from homework tonight. It won't mess up any of my overall deadlines. And I'm just going to get takeout and I'm going to watch some great British flower fight on Netflix. And I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And that'll put me where I need to be tomorrow morning. And it worked. So get to know yourself. Figure out what's in your comfort zone and how you can tap into that as you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Your comfort zone should be a tool, not a trap. All of this is, I hope, contributing both to the ways that you will set yourself up to be creative in life, and also how it'll set you up to have a lot of ideas for your stretch quests. So I think this is a really good time for you to do a brainstorm. Think about as many ideas as you can of things that you might do that would be in your courage zone. And think about things that you might do that might be in your panic zone. You're not committing yourself to doing any of these right now. It's safe to just write them down. But get adventurous with it. Think about things that relate to your professional goals, to your hobbies, to ways of getting to know other people. A lot of people have had really rewarding experiences pushing them outside into their courage zone with things like paying for coffee at Tim's for the person behind you in line. That will be harder these days because you want to stay socially distanced, but there are a lot of ways you can do that. Also, don't forget about the ways of pushing yourself that aren't so flashy. Remember things like trying out meditation or seeing if you can expand your focus while you're reading a book, whether it's for school or for pleasure. All of these ideas should give you a nice, good start at a list for your ideas for your stretch quests. Later in the term, you might find yourself running dry for ideas. But by then, you will have been trained on some creativity techniques, and you could use those to come up with more. So I trust that you will be able to come up with things for yourself for the whole term. You could, even as a stretch quest, get your team to help you brainstorm more ideas, leading a bonus brainstorm session. If that takes you outside of your comfort zone, that could count as a stretch quest. Don't forget to also find inspiration in your lectures and your readings, because you'll need to be able to tie back to those for the reflections that you're turning in. And also because they're a great source of ideas of ways to stay creative. Again, if you have any questions or run into troubles, you've got my email address, and I wish you well.